Hi everyone, my name is Mark Mullen. I'm here to give an overview of packaging stories, whether it's for the news or any other platform, because in many ways storytelling is storytelling. So I'm going to cover some good practices, and I'll also speak specifically about one particular story that we did in one of our newscasts about teenage students who are stuck at home dealing with coronavirus, their thoughts, their days and basically their lives. So if you haven't seen that story, it would be helpful to watch that now, then pick this video back up from here. 2020 is destined to be remembered as the year of the coronavirus, a globally shared experience that shut down countries and disrupted the lives of billions of people, not only adults, but also our children, especially our children. We wanted to know how kids are dealing with this extraordinary situation. So we asked a group of young people from Valley Middle School and Aviara Oaks Middle School in Carlsbad to record their thoughts and lives and share them with us. A visual diary of their life in this historic time. At first glance, it looks like kids being kids. But look closer and you'll see middle schoolers coping. For young people, life in the times of the coronavirus means a lot more free time at home. For fun and games. More time for indulgences.
Although I hate to admit it, I've been watching TikToks.
And without traditional school schedules or organized sports, more personal choices, like when to get out of bed.
I try and wake up at about 8:30, 9:30.
I'd sleep in, because who doesn't want to sleep in?
I think we're all trying to absorb all this freedom that we got right now.
But when 1 week turned to many, with nobody knowing when things would return to normal.
At first it was nice to relax, but now everyone's just sort of going crazy at home.
The free time and uncertainty gave these middle schoolers plenty to think about.
No one's seen this before, no one's dealt with this before, this is new for everybody.
It's scary because it kind of feels like we've lost our freedoms.
I had no idea that it would ever come to this.
Life is weird right now, and I'm kind of scared because I'm not scared of getting the virus myself because I know it won't impact me, but I'm scared of if I get it, if I give it to someone.
I've heard so much about it, and I still don't understand it. It's just like, I don't know how this happened.
Welcome back, Vikings.
And what about school?
My biggest worry about missing so much school is that I don't know if I'll be able to have enough information going into high school.
Yeah, I miss school. I mean, as a 14-year-old girl, knowing how much I'm missing out on, like, for example, 8th grade promotion and 8th grade dance.
But I could honestly do it through here.
If school is a child's primary source of structure and socialization, it's all the tougher that friends during this time now have to connect through a device.
I miss my friends so much.
Texting and being on FaceTime, it really just isn't the same as like being in person.
But these young teens are doing their best to cope in positive ways. Tedros Hemberger is improving his skills in the kitchen.
I'm making a burrito. I love my dog. Here behind me is Ramsey.
And he's invented a game that provides exercise for he and his pal.
I've decided I want to start a little garden.
Others are gardening, doing yoga, and Sinead Estrada is practicing her soccer skills.
Good morning.
Cameron Fisher rides bikes up and down his street with his family.
We get to say hi to our neighbors 6 feet away, social distancing.
Reconnecting with family has perhaps been the biggest silver lining. Still, if there is one universal hope among all these young people,
I think everyone's kind of getting to the point where they're like, can everything go back to normal, please?
So by way of introduction, I anchor evening newscast here at NBC7 in San Diego, but my calling, my real love, my happy place as a journalist is reporting, which basically has dominated much of my working life. Before coming here to San Diego to return to local news, I was a domestic and a foreign correspondent for NBC Nightly News and the Today Show, last based in China. I worked for ABC News and a number of local TV stations in different places, and they're all experiences I'm super grateful for. But the truth is, there are great stories to tell wherever you live, whoever you work for, whatever school you attend, and whatever grade you happen to be in, because the best stories really are centered around people, right? And people are everywhere, and people have great stories to tell. Which leads me to the story that we did, teens dealing with coronavirus. So as journalists, we're dealing with coronavirus too. So all of our stories are being done essentially remotely with a device, through a device, right? Skype, FaceTime, things like that, or if they are in person, standing 10 feet from somebody. So it's a kind of tough way to tell an intimate story about someone and their personal feelings if you can't get close to them. So, solution. With the help of Mr. Green, 9 students were contacted and agreed to participate in our story that basically asks the students themselves to record their own thoughts with their own cameras or phones. Kind of a self-interview, and also we asked them to shoot some video of how they spend their days. As a journalist, this is both good and risky. It's good because if it works and we get some good content back, awesome. Plus, it can be really authentic in that type of setting. It's basically like they're sharing a video diary with the viewers. It's a bit risky in that I don't have any control as a journalist how they're shooting the video, if the sound is any good. I'm not there to ask follow-up interview questions. You get the idea. Granted, in a video story, when an audience, like in a newscast, is alerted in advance that the content they're about to see came from non-TV people, in this case students, they are more forgiving, the audience is, and appreciate the authenticity. But in this case, it didn't matter. Interviews were great. There was also a lot of really good video to work with. That said, not all of this is luck. First, these are students of Mr. Green, who runs a nationally recognized journalism program. And also, we did ask the students in advance to speak specifically about certain subjects. As mentioned, 9 students were featured in this story. So typically, the way that this works, you would hope that you might have 6 usable interviews with 2 really good talkers of the 9. That's how it works with adults. In this case, all of the students were terrific. So, big win, right? So I mentioned that we asked the students in advance to speak specifically about certain subjects. So remember, before doing any story, you should have a focus going in. What is the story going to be about generally? If we ask the students to talk about whatever is on their mind, it might be all over the place. We'd have some common answers, yes, but it could be, my little brother's a brat, I'm tired of eating hot dogs, whatever. So there has to be some focus going into any story. That said, you also have to be flexible and keep an open mind, because there will be things you hear from people that you interview that should be included in the story, things you didn't think about or would be in a position to know. I mean, they are their own experts, right? That's why we're interviewing them. So have a decent starting point so you know how to direct the interviews, how to begin writing the story, but also stay flexible about changing the story based on what you hear. So here's how it worked for me in this story. Because we gave the students in advance the subjects that we wanted them to talk about, I had a good idea of the range of things that they might say. And once I logged the interview, the students basically said the same things. The thought, this was great at first. So now we have the beginning of the story. Though again, be flexible to having your mind change, and I will tell you about an adjustment we did in script editing to the top of the story and why coming up in just a moment. So, beginning of the story done. Next thing in my process is to find the end of the story, not the middle, the end. Find a good start and an end to the story. This is my process. It may work differently for you, but it works for me. Clues to give you the ending are often found in the sound bites of the people you interview. Over and over, the students in these interviews said that they wish things would go back to normal. This seemed like a really good end to me. So now we have a beginning and an end and a journey. They've taken from I'm happy there's no school to I wish there was school and a return to my old life. Then the middle of the story begins to almost write itself. So there were a lot of common themes that emerged. After the newness wore off, kids in their interview said the free time was great to not only goof off, but then as it wore on, they also had free time to worry about coronavirus, about not being prepared for the next school year, missing promotions, dances, student athletes couldn't play team sports. So I know that I'm going to include material like that. One other thing all of the kids did and talked about, which I wanted to include, was looking for ways to make this really weird time positive, like learning new things to cook, garden, more family time, hanging out. TV is a visual medium, so video matters. So as I logged all of the video, there was one student that had really good high-definition shots in the kitchen. Multiple angles, cutaways, natural sounds of him explaining what he is making. That sequence is going to make its way into the story. It's too good not to feature. So we had 3 minutes to tell the story, and I still couldn't include everything from all of the students. There was that much material. But even in smaller pieces with fewer interviews, compromise is a necessary part of video storytelling. And even if you don't have a set time limit on a story like we often do in newscasts, in your story before it lags. You don't have to use everything. The audience only knows what they see in your story. They don't know what they did not see. So remember I mentioned starting the piece with kids out of school and having fun, and I mentioned staying flexible. So both of those came into play when we decided to adjust the beginning of the story. I'll tell you what I did and why I originally, in the script, I started the package with video of a brother and sister playing a video game and high-fiving. And to go with that, I wrote the words, "For young people, life in the times of coronavirus means a lot more free time at home for fun and games," and then the story goes on. So that works well, but the thing that was nagging me assembling the story is that I remembered the good practice of storytelling that whenever possible, you should aim to start a story with all of your best video. My opening shot of a brother and sister doing a high five, really good. But of all of the videos submitted by all of the students, the most interesting stuff was them doing hobbies like cooking and riding bikes with their families, running and stuff like that. But if I told the story chronologically, then we wouldn't see those great pictures until probably about 3/4 of the way through the story, which is the point when I'm talking about how they're making the best of the situation. For me, that's too long to wait. So, talking with our managing editor, Ish Estrada, great guy, he suggested a couple of additional sentences before the words I used to start the piece, simply as a vehicle to show that good video, so the audience didn't have to wait. The lines were simply, "At first glance,
it looks like kids being kids.
But look closer and you will see middle schoolers coping." And then the story picks up as I originally wrote it. Now, do those new lines add a lot of information to the story? No, not orally, but visually it is a way to show the audience the best pictures in advance. It gives them an early payoff and a preview of what's to come if they stick around to watch the story, so they get a glimpse of the better stuff from the start. It kind of honors their paying attention to the story. And to add to that, I asked the newscast producer, and you'll see this if you screen the story again, to also show video in my on-camera studio introduction to the story, just to further that. It's a good reminder to start a story when possible with your best images, even chronological stories. And as a quick aside, when you have a written script, print it out on paper and read it out loud. I have no idea why, but you will catch subtle things to make your story better if you print it out as opposed to just reading it on your computer screen. A few more notes from me and I'll wrap it up. This on logging interviews in your video, and I know sometimes it's tedious. I know there are apps and online programs that can transcribe, but it's important you see your video and sound, watch all of the video and take notes, because the more you can write to your video, the better the story will be. And on interviews, in addition to transcribing, there are notes I put on my logs that help in the editing process. The tone of the interview, I put stars next to the sound bites I like, even how they speak. For example, if an interview subject ends a sentence with an upward inflection, you know how some people when they talk, they kind of go up and the sentences all kind of end up. What I will do is I will hand draw an up arrow after the sentence to indicate that on the log. The bites are still good bites, but it may not cut smoothly with another person's bite, or if the bite stands alone, the audience may think you cut off their thought before they finish. So when given a choice, I'll try to use a bite that ends down so it's not a problem. And if it's a good bite and ends with an upward inflection, put it in, listen to it, and it may work. It's subtle, but the object is for you to have your audience stay immersed in your story and not be distracted by something small, like bad audio, weird video, sound bite that sounded incomplete, or even head direction. Speaking of, last logging suggestion, head direction. As a rule, if you have a sit-down traditional interview, I tend in my logs to write down if they are looking camera left or looking camera right, because if you use 2 or more bites in a row, it's preferable if one is looking left and then the other one right, or vice versa, right? Otherwise, if they're looking in the same direction, it can look like a jump cut when you do the edits, and it can take the audience a moment to realize it's a different person talking. Again, try to eliminate distractions from your storytelling. Last, have fun. Give yourself a break. Do your best to put the best content in the time frame you have to work with, and have some patience. Technology is not perfect, and often what you have to work with is not ideal. Just give attention to stuff you can control and take your best shot, and be kind to yourself. I will tell you that every story I've ever done, I think of things the next day or week I would like to have done differently about the story. In this story about kids and coronavirus, I really wish I had made the point that teenagers are so often accused of being obsessed with their phones and communicating only through their devices, but coronavirus had even teenagers missing human interaction with their own friends. Just do the best you can at the time, and happy storytelling. Thanks for watching. I'm Mark Mullen.